Sharad Kohli, senior economist, with me on the broadcast to talk about this. Dr. Kohli, Donald Trump and his tariffs are back again, and this time the reason is that we are buying oil from Russia. So the tariff is 25% plus a penalty. What is your first reaction to this, Dr. Kohli? This is huge.
Well, my first reaction, Vineet, good evening, first of all, is that I totally condemn this move by US, and I don't think this is acceptable at any time. I mean, all the statements that he has given are not acceptable. First of all, he said we have done little business with India. Well, I think he's forgotten that $86 billion is the export we are doing. More than $45 billion is the import we are doing from the US. So how can he say that, we have done hardly business, first of all? And my second point, Vineet, is the structure of our economy is very different from the structure of the US economy. And every country has got the right to design its import and export policy according to the structure. We are primarily an agri-driven economy. He wanted an open market for agri and dairy. And for God's sake, we cannot agree to agri and dairy. What will happen to our crores and crores of farmers and dairy producers in India? And the third point he's made is that because we are dealing with Russia, now every country has got a sovereign right to trade the way it wants. If we are getting cheaper oil from Russia during COVID and after COVID too, what is the harm? Every country has got the right to save money. And import and export, I have said that earlier on your channel and your show as well, that import and export is a natural evolution of demand and supply. It's a natural evolution of which country is strong, which country is not strong, in which products. So I fail to understand that how can a country impose restrictions, impose tariffs, just because there is a trade deficit we have the US. I completely condemn this, and I hope these secondary tariffs do not come into effect. I'm sure the rest of the world is also going to realize, because President Trump is being very, very arbitrary in levying tariff on countries, and he's forgotten the fact.
Dr. Kohli, do you think Donald Trump has thought through this announcement? It seems more like that he's agitated about the fact that we are buying weapons and energy from Russia. It has nothing to do with the dynamics of the trade between these two large countries.
Vineet, I would say it's got both. Well, of course, his agitation, his irritation of our dealing with Russia is of course there. But he's basically irritated with the rest of the world that why is there a trade deficit with US has? Well, I think he's forgotten the fact that US cannot manufacture everything within its own land. He's completely forgotten that. So I condemn this, and I hope this penalty which he's speaking about, because he's spoken about 500% tariffs on the countries which are dealing with Russia and using their energy. And we are almost buying 1/3 of our requirements from Russia at this point of time. So imagine if 500% comes, it will be an unrealistic, basically. Basically, in other words, you are trying to say that we don't want to import anything. But I think what he's forgetting in this entire episode is that he's going to fuel inflation. Tonight a decision on Fed rates would be made by Jerome Powell. And he had met Jerome Powell a few days ago. And I am almost sure that Jerome Powell is not going to cut down the rates simply because there is fear of inflation looming large over the US, basically because of the tariff policy. So I condemn this, and I'm sure US will have to pay price for this arbitrary policy which it is launching. The deal with China is still stuck. And one of the reasons I spoke on your sister channel today morning, which is NewsX World, where I said one of the main reasons why US-China deal is stuck is because of the structure of the economy. It's the same problem here.
Dr. Kohli, Dr. Kohli, there were a lot of murmurs in the echelons of trade and monetary policy and economy as well that we are going to be striking an FTA with the Americans. What becomes of that?
Well, in this scenario, I think FTA is a foregone conclusion. If these tariffs are levied, I don't think FTA talks. We've had several rounds of talks. So many times Indians went there, our representatives from Commerce Ministry. So many times they have come here. Is this what all the deliberation was for? If you had to levy 25% tariff, then what was the point of discussing so much? What US wants is free entry of its goods at 0%, the way it has done with Indonesia, the way it has done with EU, the way it has done with UK. It wants to sell its goods free of, which is free of tariffs, and it wants to levy tariffs. I think this double standard policy will not survive for long. Knowing President Trump, I'm sure he's going to backtrack. This will have to be revisited. This will have to be rethought, and this cannot be pushed through. I think Indian diplomacy, Indian commerce circle, Indian government is definitely not going to accept this. because we are fine with dealing with the rest of the world. US is not the end of the world for us, Vineet.
Dr. Kohli, how does this harm American interests as well? That is obviously a point or a pivot that Donald Trump is not looking into.
Well, I think we export textiles, we export pharmaceuticals, we export leather goods, we export gems and jewelry. And unless President Trump wants, if he's got alternate market, fine. But not every country can supply what other countries are supplying, which in fact means, to answer your question directly, which in fact means that President Trump will now have to import. Well, I think there's one thing people need to understand about tariffs is that when you have tariffs, you are basically levying it on the goods which are landing in America. So effectively, you are collecting revenue on that, but it is at the end of the day, the consumers are going to pay the price. I think he's completely out of context with that the American public are going to suffer from inflation. The goods are going to be expensive. Either you do not import or you import at an expensive price. So I think this is the sooner he learns that, the better it would be. For now, I think it's a very poor economic policy which he's trying to implement across the world. It's been more than 3 months now, and the world is basically in a turmoil. I have a feeling, Vineet, that he's going to backtrack. He will have to revisit this.
In fact, Donald Trump starts his statement on Truth Social by saying that India is our friend. But this is not how you deal with friends. Donald Trump has also been extremely vocal when it comes to Apple products not being manufactured in India. A big fillip and a boost to our economy.
Absolutely. I think when he says you start manufacturing Apple phones in America, little does he know that the $1,200 Apple phone or a $1,500 Apple phone is going to be for $3,500. So unless he wants, he can set up factories in America. He wants factories to be set up in America overnight. He's forgotten that America, many decades ago, has moved away from the era of being a manufacturing hub. And he's also forgotten that the world doesn't forget America. When we use Meta, when we use Google, when we buy burgers from McDonald's, when we drink Coca-Colas and Pepsis, we always, I can hardly imagine a person from anywhere in the world not using an American product either digitally or in a brick and mortar model, not remembering America. So I'm surprised as to how he's forgotten that the world is being unfair with America. In the process of making MAGA, Make America Great Again, I can bet you, Vineet, he's going to make America expensive again. So my MAGA would be MAEA going forward.